But the new season starts in Cardiff on Thursday night. Luke Littler is odds on to finish in the top 4, and Peter Wright is the bookies' favorite to finish bottom of the league table. Will either or both of those things happen?
Well, I just spoke about him in the last question, so I'll start with him for the answer to this one. And from that debut 2014 campaign in the Premier League for Peter Wright, 10 years later, his 11th consecutive season, but as you say, goes in as the odds-on favourite with the bookies to finish bottom of the pile. And there's no getting away from it. Out of those 8 players, he is the most out-of-form player in the lineup, and there is still legs left literally in Peter Wright's darts career. But I have got the feeling that when he does put his darts in the case for that last time, the Premier League is going to be one that got away. You mentioned the match starts that he had in 2017 in the final against MVG and lost. There's been other occasions when he's been close, finishing 5th, getting to the playoffs again in 2020. But right now, the current format, I don't think it helps him. And okay, you can go back to that very first night of this nightly tournament. What was it, back in 2022? Peter Wright, he won the night in Cardiff, finished off with a 113 average in the final against Johnny Clayton. But the 15 weeks since then, in 2022, all of last year's 2023 season, 31 weeks, he's made 2 finals. So it doesn't make good reading when you're thinking of a push for the playoffs. But when you add in his form, you do fear the worst for Peter Wright in this Premier League. And I've got to say as well, just on another note, it's a shame that the Twitter account, What Darts is Peter Wright using, has decided to stop, because I always enjoyed those updates, what setup Peter Wright was going to be using. And we often talk about the equipment when it comes to Peter. And right now, he just looks to be further away than ever from finding something that is going to bring him that level of consistency that has served him so well over the years. And okay, there's no relegation in the Premier League. He is guaranteed 16 weeks of playing, 16 weeks maybe of tinkering. He could use 16 different sets of darts, one for every week if he wanted to. But at the same time, if you are losing each week, what is that going to do for your confidence? And right now, I can't see anyone else finishing bottom other than Peter Wright, as much as it pains me to say it. As for Luke Littler, I think this one is more up for debate. And okay, you can say he's just won in Bahrain. He's made the final in the Netherlands the last 2 weeks on the World Series, and he's playing against the same group of players. That is true, but this is a long slog. 16 weeks on the road, whatever age you are going to have ups and downs. And I just don't think you can sustain that high level every single week. And okay, of course you don't need to with this format. It's much easier to make up for a bad week. You go out first game 1 week, okay, follow it up, make a final the next week or win the night. You've more than made up for it, haven't you? But I want to see how Luke Littler takes to this Premier League these first 2 or 3 weeks. I think we are going to learn a bit more, and we've touched on it as well in the show about the added schedule, not just the Premier League but all the events that go around it. So I think before I make a definite prediction on this one, if he makes the top 4, I do think we need to see how these first few weeks play out, because he is still on that massive high from the World Championships, the success that he's had on the World Series. But how long is he going to sustain this for? And it's going to be about when he does have that drop off, because it is going to come at some point during these 16 weeks. How does he bounce back? How does he recover from that? And once we see the reaction, I think we can say for more certainty, not just odds on with the bookmakers, but more certainty if Luke Littler can make the playoffs on debut.
Yeah, the odds on is the part that gets me, just because I think there are still some question marks, but they're rapidly becoming narrower and narrower. The way he's playing right now, it's almost a foregone conclusion he's going to make the top 4. But there's no guarantee he's going to continue to play at this level. And we still need to see how he responds to losing. Obviously, losing a single match, he's responded admirably. He's professional beyond his years, and the loss, obviously, in the World Final did nothing to damper his confidence. He came back in the next event and won it, and he made the final and played brilliantly. And I think he knows he just ran into someone who didn't make any mistakes in the final. But what happens when he goes out first match and isn't playing his best and just gets pummeled? What happens when he starts losing some Players' Championship events or Euro Tours that he gets into, or the UK Open as the season goes on? I think he'll handle it fairly well, but we just don't know. We don't yet know how he's going to react, because he hasn't yet had to learn to lose. And to put him odds on without knowing that is just a little bit too optimistic. That said, right now, he is one of the 4 best players in the world. He might be the best player in the world right now. And right now, I do think he's going to finish in the top 4. As far as Peter Wright goes, you have to tip him to finish bottom, although I think an argument can also be made for Nathan Aspinall. Nathan Aspinall's only won 2 of his last 14 matches against tour card holders. I mean, he's been playing some really mediocre darts at times, and sometimes he's playing better and still losing. But he's gone through his worst stretch as a professional over the last couple months. And during that same streak, Peter Wright has won a major. So it's not like it's been that long since Peter Wright found a way to get it done. I think Peter Wright is finding his A game less often than Nathan Aspinall, and he's on his C and D game much more often than Nathan Aspinall. But when he finds his A game, he can sustain it. And that means he could win a night, or he can win, a couple nights. Right now, I don't think Nathan Aspinall is playing at a level that's going to win a night. But I think he's going to play at a level that'll win a match more often than Peter Wright will. There's just that little bit more consistency, and Peter Wright right now has none whatsoever. I am much more worried about Peter Wright than I am about Aspinall. I think Aspinall will get things corrected at some point, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Peter Wright is right now the worst player in this field. It's probably the case that he is, and it's probably the case that he finishes bottom. So I'm going to say both things will happen, but there's a case to be made against both of them.